I'm excited. We've done 26 episodes and we've given our listeners 26 ways to improve their lives. But in episode 27, we're going to share the ultimate tool for creating health and wealth for retirement, as well as accomplish their short-term goals.
Really, that sounds like an amazing episode, but tell me, what's this success tool, Mark?
Well, I call it something being purposely consistent, and it's a tool used by every species on the planet to hunt and even avoid being hunted.
Purposely consistent? What does that mean?
Well, that's what episode 27 is all about.
Well, I'm curious. Let's get this episode started.
Welcome to the Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement podcast. This is for those who don't just want to retire, but want to live a fun, travel-filled, strong, and decades-long retirement. Your hosts are Rick Collins, the financial expert who will help you build the wealth you need to retire with confidence, freedom, and zero stress. And Mark Dulaney, also known as the Health Millionaire, who will help you build the health, strength, and mobility to actually enjoy that wealth. Because let's be real, what's the point of financial security if you don't have the health to enjoy it? This podcast is for you if you are about 50 and up, have worked hard, saved smartly, sacrificed, invested wisely, and now want to lock in your future with the health and wealth you need for a great retirement. So, listen up, because the best years of your life should be ahead of you, not behind you. In every episode, Mark and Rick break down the health, fitness, and financial strategies you need to create a thriving retirement. One that's strong, mobile, financially secure, and most of all, fun.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement podcast. I'm your co-host, Rick Collins. I'm the money guy, and this is
Mark Dulaney, and I'm your health guy. I want to help make sure you are healthy and mobile so you can enjoy the wealth Rick helps you create for retirement.
So what are we going to talk about today, Mark?
Well, I'm going to give a secret. It's called being purposely consistent. And being purposely consistent has two major benefits that people often don't think about.
What's that? What's the two? I'm curious.
Well, so first of all, let's talk about the consistent part first, because it's interesting to me that all of us in some way, shape, or form are very, very consistent in the life that we're living. There was a movie called Stranger Than Fiction, and the name of the character was Harold Crick. He woke up at the same time every day. He did the same thing every day. Literally speaking, step by step, daily, every day of his life was the same, and he was very content with his life.
I don't know if I ever saw that movie. I'll have to go check it out.
It's a great movie, Stranger Than Fiction. The star of it doesn't come to my mind. His name doesn't come to my mind anymore, but he's a famous guy. Everyone knows him. If I think of his name during the show, I'll mention it. But Harold Crick, he lives a very interesting life. There are people
It's Will Ferrell.
It is Will Ferrell. That's true.
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell. Google is an amazing tool, Rick. Will Ferrell's character lives a consistent life. Other people consistently mind alter themselves with drugs, alcohol, tobacco, sex, and other things. That's still a form of consistency. Some people consistently do things that make them great. So I really want to help people to decide how they want to be consistent. And that's why the purposely part is so much more important. And by purposely, there are two things that happen when you're consistent. So we'll talk about the first one first. Purposely means you do it on purpose. Mr. Crick in the movie Stranger Than Fiction just came into a way of life that made him comfortable. He wasn't trying to be more successful. He was trying to maintain what he had. When you're purposely consistent, though, you're saying, I'm here. I want to grow. I want to make more money. I want a better relationship. I want a better body. I want a better life. In order to do that, you can't be consistent at what got you to the life you have. You have to be purposely consistent to what specifically will give you the life you want. Rick, does that make sense? And comment.
It's interesting. I had a conversation the other day. My son's an engineering graduate or graduating engineer student, and he was talking about the natural chaos that happens in life and in our world. And it's interesting, kind of a parallel here. If I just keep doing the same exact thing as I get older, it's going to have less and less impacts because chaos grows as we age and get older, our bodies break down, things get more expensive, whatever. So just doing the same thing every day, I'm actually going to be moving backwards toward, instead of toward a goal, I'm moving away. Even if that goal is staying still, and if I don't do something a little more, then I'll have less as time goes on.
Yeah, and not to mention that as you get older, you mentioned that, but also inflation eats at your money, and lethargy eats at your health and your body. And there's so many ways that just doing the same thing for the rest of your life is going to cost you more, it's going to help you. So by purposefully being consistent, you're saying you're making a choice. You're not doing what's comfortable. You're not doing what's easy for you. What you're basically doing is just saying, if I want this life, health and wealth for retirement, then I need to act like this. And in past episodes, we talked about knowing where you are, managing your money better, saving money, investing money with someone like you, exercise, diet. And so that's the first element of purposely. It is deciding what you want and purposely doing what will move you in that direction. Now, Rick, the interesting thing about that is that means it creates discomfort.
Yeah, if you decide to do something different, it's going to feel uncomfortable, awkward to begin with. Like the first time I go to the gym in several months, I'm really sore the next day. I know it's important that I go exercise, but if my body is used to doing only a few things and I stretch it out of that comfort zone, it can be awkward. It can be uncomfortable. It can be awkward going to the gym. When I go to the gym and I see these 400-pound people, they're so brave to walk into the gym because that's got to be really awkward because they know they're terribly out of shape, but they're doing something. And that should inspire everybody that sees them of it is never too late to get out of your comfort zone to do something different so you can have something more.
What's also interesting about that, Rick, is if you do something every day and you're never challenged or uncomfortable, something's wrong. Like you're too comfortable in your life. And at some point, if you don't do something to make yourself uncomfortable, life is going to come along and do something to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger was really big on doing the supersets to failure. And by the time he was, at the end of a superset, he was only, curling 40 pounds when he started at 100, but people only made fun of him because he was only curling 40, but he lifted that weight so many hundreds of times that he was exhausted. But yeah, if I only bench press 80 pounds every time I bench press, I'll never grow. I'll maintain what I have, but I won't grow unless I add more weight in the future. Same thing goes with money. If people don't do anything differently with money, save a little extra, earn a little more, they're going to stay at the status quo.
I had a client, his name is Frank, and Frank swore he couldn't walk. He couldn't run. He's not a runner. He was a bike rider. And in a year or so, we got him to run 2 10Ks over one weekend. So
that's impressive.
Yeah, so it's getting started, and with the expectation you're going to grow. And he was purposely consistent in the idea of running, and he actually did a lot of great things with his body because he stretched himself and grew. So the first element of purposely is this is what I want, and this is what I'm going to do to get it. Now, we talk about health and wealth for retirement. So I start people with walking. I start some people with a little bit of light jogging. I start some people out with other sorts of other things. Rick, if somebody wants to be perfectly consistent creating wealth, what would you suggest they do to begin with?
Set aside a dollar figure a week that you don't spend on fast food or coffee or something else, whether it's $5, $10, $100 a week. Start with something and keep doing that, making it a habit so you don't miss that money or the things you buy with that money after a few weeks. It becomes second nature to just not waste that extra little bit of money. And it really does. It's a decision. It's a mindset of I can do this. And then 2 or 3 weeks in, you're like, I've saved $150. I can keep doing this. And then I want to do more. Generally, it becomes, what else can I do to improve my situation? So it's really a decision to take action.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is this brings us to the second element of being purposely consistent. So the first element is basically get started, decide what you want and get started, which was the topic of our last week's show in terms of if not now, when. And so I'll ask you, listener, if you're not going to start something to create the life you want in the future now, what makes you think you're going to do it next week, next month, or next year? But the second element of being perfectly consistent is once you get started, guess what happens, Rick? Something bad happens. You miss a week. You fail at it. You struggle at it. And this is the part that most people fail at. This is your opportunity to learn. The idea behind being purposely consistent isn't that you already know how to be great. It's that every day you learn something else to be great at. And so
Well,
people,
that's deep, Mark.
yeah, well, I try. When you do something, so for example, I stop people out walking and inevitably they'll say, oh, I didn't walk today. And I'll ask the question, why didn't you walk today? And they will give me a whole bunch of reasons. And every reason they give me, I then give them the solution to that so it doesn't happen again tomorrow. And so in some cases, it's as simple. I have a book around here somewhere called Atomic Habits. And one of the things they say, if you want to exercise in the morning, put your clothes out before you go to bed. Don't find something to wear in the morning because that becomes an obstacle. So the second element of being purposely is to then say, okay, I did not do as well as I wanted to today. How can I do better tomorrow? And if you ask that question every day, how can I do better tomorrow? How can I do better tomorrow? Whether it's with money, whether it's in your love life, whether it's with your body, you will come up with the answer. And the answer is what you do the next day.
Yeah, I run into that quite a bit. That daily inventory of what did I do today that worked well? What did I do today that I could have done better? What can I do differently tomorrow? So that ongoing evaluation of my daily choices can help me figure out how to do things differently tomorrow, how to get up early, go to the gym, or to go for a walk, or put the phone down, turn the TV off, and do something for my health instead of just being complacent and putting it off till I'll start again next week.
So I would like to take it to a different part of our lives, and that is our relationships. So I have a tendency to avoid conflict almost to a fault. And I'm in a relationship with a woman, and she's fiery. She literally is fiery, and she will do or say something, and I will avoid conflict and just go along with it. And then all of a sudden, one day, I'll explode all over her. And that's not a good way to manage a relationship. And so what I'm learning is how to discuss the things that bother me at the time they bother me, so they become smaller issues as opposed to bigger issues later. I think a lot of us are holding in things against our people we love in our lives, not just romantically, but our parents, our children, our good friends, our coworkers, and then it ends up being a bigger deal than it has to be. Rick, I want you to think through not just money, but life in general. Where have you seen where you realize you could have learned something from some of your mistakes and actually learned initially as opposed to at the end when it's too late? Now I'm putting him on the spot. You can't see him, but he's laughing right now. So
You mean other than my first and second marriages? Let's see. I married. Well, anyway, I learned my lesson about marriage and communication, and because I was like you, conflict avoidant because I was a people pleaser until that created an atomic bomb explosion of anger and lashing out and losing my temper just because I'd never communicated along the way. I waited till I blew up on somebody for something seemingly small, but it was the culmination of all that pent up frustration. So, I have since learned how to communicate in a more healthy way, find outlets for my tension, my frustration, and my resentments. I've learned how to forgive. For a long time, I held on to grudges and wanted to stay mad at somebody because that made me feel like I was in control. And what I really realized was my being angry at somebody and choosing to hold on to that was just hurting me. It wasn't affecting them whatsoever. And so by learning to forgive and move on and let go of the anger I felt towards somebody who had hurt me or slighted me, it allowed me to be more present in my relationships today and make better decisions today because I wasn't clouded and held back by the anger that I was holding on to.
So, over the course of the last few weeks, we've discussed many issues that I believe help people beyond just creating health and wealth for retirement. I think it helps them dramatically improve their lives. And one of the interesting things is the progression that we've done, I believe, can really help someone really understand and see their path to creating way more success. So, for example, right now we're talking about being purposely consistent. Last week we did if not now, when. So get started. Before that, we did love versus fear. And in a previous episode, we talked about the 5 fingers of failure. If someone would listen to all of those lessons together, or one after the other, I think they would have a path to truly getting started on creating the life they truly want to live, both a year from now and well into their retirement. So Rick, what I would like to ask you to do, and we didn't rehearse this, so I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. You give me a strategy that someone would say, okay, if I want to start creating wealth for retirement, I need to do this, and this, and I will help them and understand how being purposely consistent can get them started and grow from, oh, I messed up, to becoming really great at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. One of the first things I tell all my people, or I do with all of my people that I talk to, is education. They have to understand all these risk factors and things that happen in the world that they're not aware of that are affecting their future, what their future is going to look like if they don't change. So first of all, we have a little education. And then I ask people, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to, what do you want your retirement to look like? And then we back into yearly, monthly, and even weekly goals of, like I said earlier, setting aside the $10 a day you blow on Starbucks, maybe cut that down to $5.
Okay, so let's take that one. So $10 a day, save $10 a day. So let's just say day goes by, they don't save their $10. So the question is why? Well, they drive by Starbucks and they couldn't resist. So let's take a different route to work. That could be that simple. Or buying the coffee, buying Starbucks coffee in a grocery store and making it at home has got to be cheaper than going to Starbucks and buying it. So that's a second way. So the idea is you realize that you can't drive by Starbucks and you need to have Starbucks at home and make it at home. Instant savings, instant start.
And it really is a decision. You have to decide and be purposeful about it. Like you said, it's so easy to drive by a place and throw down the debit card or credit card, especially the credit card. That's really bad. You're paying interest on coffee you drank 5 years ago if you don't pay off your bill. But it's that decision. And then if you stumble, if you have a bad day and need an extra hit of Starbucks or ice cream or whatever it is, then try to make up for it for the rest of the week. Don't just keep digging a hole. If I go off the rails and blow the budget on a Monday, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, I drink coffee from home or do something different. So at the end of the week, I'm closer to my goal than I would have been if I'd just kept digging that hole and falling off the budget wagon. So instead of a lot of people, I'm guilty of this too. If I don't go to the gym one day, the day I was planning on going, then I just blow off the whole week. Well, I'll start better next week. That doesn't move me forward because I've got to do something different now, not a week from now or a year from now.
So one of the things that I tell people when it comes to going to the gym or working out is put your clothes out the night before or carrying them with you so they're ready. You don't want to stop and have to look for what to wear, and that becomes another decision tree. The second thing that I tell people is when it comes to shopping, say no once to the potato chips, the ice cream, the cookies, the cakes in the store, as opposed to every moment at home until you end up eating it all. So the best way to be purposely consistent when it comes to diet is don't bring something home you don't want to eat. It takes a lot more energy to go to the store and buy it than it does to go to the refrigerator and pull it out. And
if it's not readily available, it takes more effort than most people are going to put in to go in to get the cheap food.
So one of another purposely consistent tools I learned when it comes to finances is have the money taken out of your check and put into a special account as opposed to having to physically move it yourself. If you can do that, that also makes it easier to save money.
You know, there's a reason the IRS takes your money out of your paycheck before you even see it, because they want to make sure they get paid. Aren't you more worthy of spending money on yourself than the IRS? Maybe pay yourself first before you go spend the rest of your paycheck on other stuff.
Yeah, that's true. And in every part of your life, there are things that you can learn from your mistakes. It is, what is it? Isn't it? There's a saying out there, it's not a fool, but it's a weak person dies 1,000 deaths. A brave person dies only once. Well, I think that the same thing is true about people who make poor decisions. Make a bad decision, learn from it, commit to never do that thing again, and then you constantly grow and improve. That's the whole concept behind being purposely consistent.
I think one important thing to be able to avoid the repeating a decision is to understand why you made the bad decision when you did. Maybe it's a trigger. Maybe it's the driving route. Maybe it's not getting enough sleep. But whatever the reason that you decide to do something that you against what you plan, or you don't follow through with a plan, there's an underlying reason. Sometimes it's just we're lazy, but oftentimes it's situational. I'm having a stressful day, so I'm going to go eat a half a box of Girl Scout cookies, or I didn't get enough sleep last night. I stayed up too late watching a movie, so I didn't get up and go to the gym this morning, or I didn't plan ahead for, the new tires I knew I was going to need 6 months ago. So now I'm wrecking my savings and to buy new tires because I had a blowout. Whatever it is, figure out what did I do that caused me to have to deviate from my plan, and then avoid that situation so you're less likely to be tempted to shortcut life.
So I had the pleasure of going to Las Vegas last week before this episode. And it's very, very interesting to me that when you look at the buildings that they build, you look at the architecture, there's a ton of purposeful consistency that goes into Vegas. And that's why it's the vacation capital of the world, one of the vacation capitals of the world, because one of the things they did was they made it really easy to get into Vegas. Flights to Vegas are fairly inexpensive. Some of the hotels are really inexpensive. But once you get there, everything is expensive.
Yep.
So why don't you do that with your life? Make it very easy to do the things you want to do and make it very expensive to do the things you don't want to do. And I know I saw your.
That was deep there, Mark.
I try to. I'm not just another ugly face on the podcast. I try to bring something that the audience can benefit from. If you know that you have a spending problem, don't go to the mall. Sounds simple, but don't go to the mall. If you know you don't want to exercise, make it easy to get started exercising. If you know that you have a spending problem, don't take your credit cards then when you go out unless you know you need something. There's so many things that a person can learn to do when they're purposely consistent. If they're willing to analyze the problem, they can solve the problem very easily if they're committed to wanting to create health and wealth for retirement.
A lot of times, some of these problems that you mentioned, some of these problems are merely being in a bad place emotionally. We often will eat things we shouldn't because we're angry or we're hurt or we're depressed or whatever, or we won't go to the gym because we're stuck in an emotional turmoil. Same thing goes with money. If somebody's depressed and stressed because they're barely making ends meet now, they're not in a position to think about doing things differently for their financial future. So yeah, sometimes the emotional problems are getting in the way of our progress, and whether they're real problems or not, emotions, whatever I feel is real to me, and that's holding me back. It is helpful to think things through of why I feel the certain way, why I'm stuck, why do I feel depressed or hopeless or helpless or whatever. because until I overcome the emotional boundaries, it's difficult to make those decisions to be purposely consistent.
So 2 weeks ago, we did a show on asking the question whether you make decisions and live your life based on love of what you want to accomplish or fear of what you don't want to have happen. And I think this is a great place to do this kind of a review. When you live out of love, you're moving towards what you want. When you live out of fear, you're trying to either hold on to what you have or not, or avoid something else bad from happening to you. And a lifestyle based on love is so much more pleasurable, so much more enjoyable, so much more positive expectation. A life based in fear has got to be miserable, got to be miserable. And so that's a starting point. Then last week you talked about if not now, when. Give us a little bit of recap of that, Rick, and how they can use that to their advantage.
Getting started means the longer I wait to start changing my life, the more work it's going to be, because I'm only going to be around here so many years. And if I want, I'm 54 years old. If I wait till I'm 56 to start doing something different for my health, it's going to be harder because I'm going to be further away from my goal. I'm going to be 2 years older. I'm going to have more health problems. So putting off getting healthy, fixing your relationship, saving money for financial future, all those things, the longer you wait to start, the more work it's going to be. So, my recommendation, hey, start today, start doing something today and build upon that every day going forward, instead of putting it off for 5 years and having to scramble to catch up to where you would have been if you'd have just started, done a little bit along the way.
So we talked about love versus fear. We also talked about getting started. And now we're saying that you're started, be purposely consistent and not just randomly do stuff, or not just do what you've always done because it's comfortable, because that's out of fear, and get started on a new path. And the best thing is that when something doesn't go the way you want it, that is the moment that you have to stop and say, what happened? Why didn't I do what I expected? And how can I do better tomorrow? A question, how can I do better tomorrow? If you ask that question every night before you go to bed, it'll give you some amazing answers to some of the situations in your life. Rick, we are coming to the end of another episode. You have a tremendous next step for next week's show. Talk about that for a while. And any last comments you have about purposely consistent?
Well, we've talked about being purposely consistent and deciding to make a change and then following through with that decision. And all that comes down to really is, do I have a desire for something different? What is that desire? Is it pain avoidance, or is it out of fear, or is it moving towards something I want out of love? But desire, the internal need or want to make something different happen in the future. That's what we're going to talk about next week.
And if you don't have desire, it's because you're living your life out of fear. Because everybody I've ever spoken to in the history of mankind wants something better for themselves. Wouldn't you agree with that, Rick?
Unless you've got some serious psychological problems that I can't help people with. But yeah, most people want something better for their future.
So just to, I first time in Vegas and just got back, I'm talking about it. There was a thing called the O Strip. And somebody was a visionary and decided that wasn't good enough. So they built this entire new strip that's bigger, more modern, bigger hotels. I mean, so much bigger. You can do the same thing in your life, Rick. I can do the same thing in my life. You, listener, can do the same thing in your life. The life you have right now is the life we are keeping by choice, or we're making a conscious, purposeful decision to create a better life. Rick and I have done 28 episodes of this podcast as a part of each of our individual plans to make our lives better. And episode 1 sucked. Episode 1 through 10 sucked. But now our episodes are respectable and we're marketing them, and we got a lot of growing to do. But you cannot grow when you're just standing still, stagnant, settling for what you have. Rick, last thoughts or comments about this?
Purposely consistent, start action, make a decision to get off the couch, start doing something differently, and keep that momentum going by doing something every day or every week or whatever the frequency is. Following through is so much easier than stopping and starting and restarting. So be consistent with what you're doing, whether it's health, wealth, relationships, spiritual growth, learning new skills, hobbies, and habits. Just be consistent.
Purposely consistent, Rick. Be purposely consistent, because then when something doesn't go, you have a plan to make sure it goes better the next day. And if you just had the mindset that every day I can get a little better in every way, it's amazing what you can create in 6 months to a year. Rick, if someone wants to contact us, they can go to creatinghealthandwealthforretirement.com. You can read more about us. You can go visit our websites or whatever else it is that we've got going. Creatinghealthandwealthforretirement.com. And the word "and" is spelled out because they don't allow punctuations in domain names. Rick, last thoughts and say goodbye.
Hey, it's been great talking about being purposely consistent. I need to improve some areas of my life and my consistency, and I'm just keeping it real with everybody. So I hope everybody listening can grasp the importance of being purposely consistent and working towards the goals you set for yourself. And next week, we'll talk about the desire of why and how you can set those goals and make them meaningful to you.
And my last thought is, the key component of everything you should do from moving forward is purposely. Don't do what you naturally easily fall into. Sometimes you have to do what's hard. And the harder you make life today with a purpose, the easier your life will be in the future. Have a great week, everybody. Can't wait to see what all of us create together.